and burn.
Hey everybody. So tonight I'm looking to discuss the 1986 sort of biopic, Sid and Nancy, starring Gary Oldman and Chloe Webb playing Sid Vicious and Nancy Spungen. This is directed by Alex Cox. He's the guy that did Repo Man. I can't stand Repo Man. I hate that movie. I don't understand why people go on and on about it. It's just, it never ends. It's like every time I try to get through that movie, I end up failing. But anyways, when I was a kid, I loved this movie. I thought like Sid Vicious was like the coolest guy in the world, and it was really scary that he killed his girlfriend. And so I saw this movie, of course, like everyone's like, oh my God, you like Sid Vicious? You've got to check out the movie. There's a movie, Sid and Nancy, go find it. And I did. I found it at the library. And when I was young and I knew nothing, I thought it was rad. I thought this movie was on point. I thought it was sad. I thought it was moving. I thought all these things that I shouldn't really have been thinking, because this movie's a mess. This movie is more of a parody than anything else. Well, actually, first I think I'll discuss the good, because the majority of this video here is going to be bad. So in an attempt to stay positive, I'll begin with the stuff that I liked. I absolutely loved the score. Pray for Rain, this sort of like soundtrack collective that had ended up scoring a number of Alex Cox's film. They did a killer job scoring my two favorite parts in this movie. When Sid and Nancy are walking off the boat that the Sex Pistols had just performed on near the start of the film, when the cops are busting everybody, Sid and Nancy are just able to just skate through all of the chaos completely untouched. And that was the other thing too. I loved the cinematography in this film because of like scenes like that, as well as the scene where they're kissing, leaning on the dumpster out back of a couple buildings in downtown New York, as people are emptying out their trash cans and the trash is falling like rain. I thought that was absolutely brilliant too. And I know that Spike Lee liked it so much that he chose to rip it off and use it in Jungle Fever, if memory serves, which I think came out in 88. I suppose it doesn't really matter. But I really liked those two scenes. Overall, the cinematography in this movie is beautiful. Like, it's amazing. It's, in a lot of ways, next to the score, it's the best part of the film. I also love that Joe Strummer got involved. I'm not big into The Clash, but the title track, Love Kills, like originally the movie was Sid and Nancy, Love Kills, right up until pretty much the time of release when they reduced it to just Sid and Nancy. The track Love Kills is absolutely, that song is amazing, and it is the end credit track that plays as the movie finishes. I love that too. What else did I want to say? My favorite tracks off the soundtrack quickly were Chinese Choppers, Off the Boat, Taxi to Heaven, and of course Love Kills. I thought Pray for Rain did an amazing job on the score. What else did I want to say that was positive? I also like that there's a couple odd cameos in this. Alex Cox, the director, he is in Rockheads. He's the guy wearing the suit in Rockheads hotel room once Rockhead has cleaned up and he isn't doing drugs anymore, when Sid, Nancy, and Johnny stop by to kind of hang out and hopefully score some heroin. Alex Cox is the dude in the suit, like I said. And at the very start of the film, when Sid is being let out in handcuffs by the NYPD out of the Chelsea, John Spacely is in the movie as one of the Chelsea residents. And now John Spacely was in another movie, a killer drug movie called Story of a Junkie. And that's where the band Rancid got the opening from the track Maxwell Murder that opens up their 1995 album, I believe, and Out Come the Wolves. That 10-second opening is from the movie Story of a Junkie, starring John Spacely. So I thought it was cool that he was in it too. And of course, Courtney Love, she plays Gretchen, but that's not really so much a cameo. She is in the movie. And if I'm not mistaken too, I think Courtney Love expressed interest in playing like Nancy Spungen in this, which does kind of raise an interesting question, like, because Courtney Love's a decent actor. She was really good in The People versus Larry Flint, too. I think she would have done a really good job. Now, that's not bashing Chloe Webb. Chloe Webb's performance of Nancy Spungen is spot on. Her voice is so shrill and it's so annoying. And Nancy, as I understand it, Nancy's nickname for everybody that knew her was Nauseating Nancy, I believe, if memory serves. And everybody hated her. And Chloe Webb, her voice is so grating. And she does such a good job of encapsulating everything that was wrong with Nancy Spungen. So I'm not knocking her performance, but I gotta say, Courtney Love, she can freak out really well too. So I think she would have done a really good job as well. But then comes everything else that's wrong with this movie. When they're in New York, for example, just off the top of my head, when those kids are picking on that one little kid, and then Sid tells them to stop, and they're like, "Why should we? Who are you?" And he's like, "I'm Sid Vicious." And then they like under crank it so the kids scatter off like water bugs. That was dumb, and I doubt that actually happened. I thought that the people playing the Sex Pistols sort of looked like them. Like, personally to me, like at a glance, the guy playing Johnny Rotten looked more like Billy Joe Armstrong from Green Day. Like he does and he doesn't. That's who I've always thought of. Of course, not initially when I saw this movie, because I found out about the Sex Pistols before I found out about Green Day. But nevertheless, the guy playing Johnny Rotten has always kind of reminded me of Billy Joe Armstrong. And he just doesn't fit what I have in my head for somebody playing Johnny Rotten. He's not skinny enough or something. And then at the very opening of the movie, well, not the very opening, near the start of the film, before the Sex Pistols take the stage, when Sid knocks out Dick Dent, the X-Ray Specs are playing "Oh Bondage Up Yours," except for some reason they race swapped Pauly Styrene, because Pauly's black and they have a white chick playing her. Or maybe, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe that wasn't even X-Ray Specs. Well, it had to be X-Ray Specs, because I don't think these bands were big enough to be being covered by other punk bands yet. I think like X-Ray Specs, their first record, I think, came out in 78. So yeah, it's probably X-Ray Specs. And for some reason, they race swapped Pauly Styrene, which makes absolutely no sense. And Rockhead, this guy Rockhead, who's supposed to be some kind of like super punk god guy, as I understand it, he's an amalgamation of sorts. He's supposed to be like Johnny Thunders and Iggy Pop all wrapped up into one person, which makes no sense. I don't even know why this Rockhead guy is in the movie. He doesn't serve any purpose. Like, he doesn't propel the story forward in any way. And he doesn't detract from the storytelling either, but he's just kind of there. And I don't understand why they needed to throw in this sort of super rock star, as he's called by Sid and the redheaded guy at the start, like a Rod Stewart. That was supposed to be, like I said, some sort of Frankenstein, Iggy Pop, Johnny Thunders. It just doesn't make any sense. What else did I want to say? Oh yeah, that's right. It feels more like this feels more like one big fashion show. Like the costumes are too clean. Everybody looks too with it. It's almost like they're actors playing punk rockers, which of course they are, but you're not supposed to sort of realize that when you're watching the movie. You're supposed to be lost in the immersion of the film. And it just, like I said, it feels more performative than it does honest. This doesn't feel real. This doesn't feel as gritty and as gross as like the Sex Pistols actually were. And I think one of my biggest problems with the movie is the fact that Cox and Company didn't have the balls to put Vicious in his swastika t-shirt, but they did decide to sort of include that in this movie by way of having him wear like the Russian hammer and sickle for some reason, because Russia is Nazi Germany or what, I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense at all. But the way I see it, that if you're not going to have the balls to include the honest shirt that Vicious is wearing in the Great Rock and Roll Swindle, with like the red shirt with the white and black swastika in the middle, if you don't have the guts to do that, and you feel that it's a little too controversial, maybe you shouldn't be making this movie, because Sid Vicious was like a human disaster and a total controversy, like a never-ending controversy. And B, if you're not gonna, maybe it would just be better if you don't include any nods to it whatsoever, like by way of the hammer and sickle. It's kind of stupid. And so I didn't love that either. I felt that was sort of like phony of them. It's like, just doesn't feel honest. It feels like, I don't know, like the PG version of the way Sid Vicious used to dress. And something about that just sits wrongly with me as well. I mean, I want to like this movie because there are aspects of this movie. Like I said, the cinematography is amazing. I absolutely loved the guy, the dude that was getting the methadone ready at the methadone clinic. He actually kind of makes methadone look kind of tasty when he's mixing it with the orange juice and everything. I always thought that, wow, you know what? That actually looks like it could be fairly good. That could taste pretty good, which I know makes absolutely no sense, but I liked that. I also love the guy when the Pistols are on tour, on their disastrous American tour that lasted, I think, like 2 weeks or whatever. The guy that's like, hey, I'm a songwriter too. He's like, I wrote a punky song, a song you guys might like he's talking to Johnny. And then it's like, I want a job, I want a job, I want a good job, I want a job, I want a job that pays, I want a job. That will be with me until the day I die. He's the guy that asks for imported beer when they're in that shitty little bar in Texas. Like, wow, how out of touch could you possibly be? And then the biggest problem that I have with this is the end of the film. How Sid kills Nancy. See, the real story goes, first off, room 100, their room at the Chelsea, after they burned down their other room, they moved them into room 100. The night that Nancy died, there were roughly 30 people coming and going through Sid and Nancy's room that whole time. There was a mattress on the floor that Sid was already confirmed to be passed out on because he had taken, I believe, up to 30 Tuinals. Tuinals are like ridiculous painkillers. I believe they're traditionally employed for people suffering from cancer. And so Sid was potentially attempting to commit suicide, or maybe there was some sort of death pact people have discussed as well that him and Nancy were in on, and he was going to overdose on pills and she was going to die however she was going to die. But the one thing that the movie got completely wrong was they were not isolated in room 100 at the Chelsea, sort of screaming at each other. And he's like, oh, fuck this, I'm leaving and I'm going back to England. And then Nancy starts screaming at him like, no, you're not. You say this every day. And it's like, I get it from trying to make them seem sleazier and more like outcasts among their own peers, and like they burned every bridge and yada, yada, yada. But it's just not factual. Their room was like party central that night. Like there were dozens of people coming and going. It sounded like a hotbed of activity. And Vicious was not conscious. He couldn't have been. It was confirmed that he took like up to 30 Tuinals. He was in a fucking coma. So the movie's like got him bouncing around the bed and he's like, you want to fucking die? And then she's like, yeah. And then he stabs her. I don't know. Maybe he did stab her. I'm not really denying that Sid might have killed Nancy, but they weren't alone. He would not have been that ambulatory. He was too banged up on all the Tuinals. So the end of the movie is a complete and total mess and a mismatch to what, like I said, dozens of people have already confirmed for the NYPD that their room was like party central that night. So having them isolated and sort of off on their own, I get it from like a filmmaking perspective, but this is, after all, some sort of like at least a loose attempt at a biopic. And they got the end so wrong, like so completely wrong. And then, of course, there's the overtly romanticized end where he gets the taxi to heaven, which I love that track. I Pray for Rain Again. And they drive off, Sid and Nancy in the back making out. But the truth was Nancy's body wasn't even cold yet, and Sid started dating Michelle Robeson. So this movie just leaves so much by the wayside that you can't really take it that seriously. And it's really disappointing because I really like Gary Oldman and I really like Chloe Webb. After this, if I'm not mistaken, I think it would be shortly after this, she'd star in Peter Greenaway's The Belly of an Architect. And I absolutely loved her in that. Her and Brian Dennehy did a great job. That movie's amazing. But this movie's a mess. It just feels like, I don't know, it feels like the punk rock story told by a bunch of 13-year-olds, And everything feels so, like I said earlier, so performative. Like it feels more like a stage play at times where everything's really bright and colorful and it's in your face. And it just kind of loses the grit and the ugliness that was their actual existence. I also love the line at the start, never trust a junkie. Ministry sampled that on Psalm 69 on the track Just One Fix. Fucking love that. That is so legendary for me because that's like Ministry's best record. But look, this review has run way too long, so I'm getting out of here. So like always, thank you so much for hanging out with me for, wow, a little over 15 minutes while I discussed the 1986 film Sid and Nancy. Like always, if you liked this review or you like this movie, don't forget to go and do something nice for somebody. Remember, it's simple. Hold the door for somebody or give $1 to charity the next time you're at Walmart or Target or whatever. Lucky people in the United States to have Target. We had Target in Canada for, it felt like 15 minutes, and it was just essentially Zellers, empty and overpriced. But most importantly, never forget that the world is actually a way better place because you are in it. I'm getting out of here. And I apologize again for this running really long. Have a good night.